Great morning, humans. Great morning, world. This is your boy, Dr. J.C. Dornick, and welcome to another edition and episode of the Make Sense with Dr. J.C. podcast. This is our live version that happens on Mondays, and that means that there's a very good chance that you'll get to see some screw ups, which is really exciting for humans. So great morning, everybody. Today, we are going to do what we typically do on Mondays, and we are going to review and summarize one of my favorite books. So as you know, I read probably about a book a week, and this one is a doozy. But what I like to do is give you the opportunity to have a condensed 20-30 minute version of me summarizing, but also using all the stuff that we talk about to make sense of a book. And today's book is Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. So I call this episode The Science of Influence. Now, first of all, the word influence is pretty interesting. Kind of makes you go the wrong way sometimes, right? Like you don't want to be influenced, but you do want to be influential. So I call it The Science of Influence, Mastering Persuasion for Sales, Communication, and Trust. Oh, the sales word. Is sales okay? Let's play good word, bad word. So this is about how understanding human psychology can make you a more effective communicator and persuader. There's another word. Is it okay to be a persuader? Is it okay to be persuasive? It's kind of one of those odd words that we think is not okay, but we seem to be doing all the time, right? I mean, look at all the birth of influencers, right? So just a quick intro to kick us off. Why is it that some people effortlessly connect with others, persuade others, and close more business, while others, many others, struggle to even get a simple response of maybe? Is it something about confidence? Is it their charisma? Or is it something else? Is something else at play? So the truth is, and when I say the truth, I'm probably just referring to what I think, right? But the truth is that most people approach communication, networking, and sales backwards. That's why there's such a big industry for people teaching people how to do those things. They focus on what they want people to know, they want to say, and what they want people to know about what they're saying, rather than the alternative of understanding what it is and the science behind what makes people say yes. It's a different approach, and it's one that I very much am intrigued by. So today, I'm going to break down and summarize one of my all-time top 5 books. We're almost done with those top 5. And that is Robert Cialdini's bestseller, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion. And I believe I have a cool little image so you guys can enjoy. Do I have it? There it is. So you can get that up there if you want to get the book. I highly recommend that you get these books, even though we're going to do these summaries and it's going to go quick and you're going to get the big takeaways and kind of feel like you read the book. There's no way I could do this book justice. I mean, I've read this book so many times. So if you scan that QR code, it'll take you to Amazon and you can get the book. So I'll leave that up there for just a second. So I'm going to break down this book, Influence, Psychology of Persuasion, by the great Robert Cialdini, who's one of the most powerful authors that I've ever read, but it's also one of the most powerful books that's ever been written on the science of persuasion. So in the realm of influence and persuasion, I guess you could just say that Robert Cialdini kind of runs the show. And here's the kicker. We're also going to dive, for those of you that have read Influence, the good news is that there's a second edition with some added stuff in it and some new insights and applications. We're going to go over that today because I read that one. And that is the 7th insight. He usually gave 6 insights in his first one, but the 7th principle and insight of persuasion, which is going to be changing the game. What's interesting about this book, in the fact that he rewrote it, is he rewrote it because the landscape has changed, you know, with the advent of internet and social media and all of that stuff. So if you want to increase sales, communicate more effectively, or simply understand what it is that moves people from point A to point B without an sticky agenda, well, then stick around. This episode is about change, and changing the way that you see influence forever. So I want to welcome everybody to the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast. As a reminder, this podcast covers topics that expand human consciousness and performance. On the Make Sense podcast, we acknowledge that it's who you are that determines how well what you do works, and that perception is an acquired taste. It's subjective by nature. And we understand and embrace that when you change the way that you look at things, then and only then do the things that you look at begin to change. So if you're a listener of the podcast, and I can't believe how many people, I think we're almost at 90,000 downloads per month right now. And we just got an offer for some advertising space, but I have no idea what that's going to look like. I hope it's nothing incongruent, but it's just been a blessing to go through this process, and we have nothing but you guys to thank. So I want to welcome everybody to the uprising of the sleepwalking masses. Welcome to the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast. Quick reminder, the Make Sense with Dr. JC podcast is supported in full. Well, I guess I can't say that anymore because we're going to start having advertising, but it's supported in full or mostly full by the Make Sense Academy and the Make Sense Substack newsletter. And I believe I can give you that right there. So there's the Make Sense Substack newsletter. So that's my free newsletter that filters into everything that I do. I put out an unusual 3 or more original content pieces. And we've got the free version, which every Monday. So everybody that is a free subscriber is going to get an amazing Substack today. But then we also, just as a way of saying thank you to people that support the show, I think it's like $8 a month. We hook them up with premium content and more frequent stuff and some special treats that are coming down the pipe as well. So this podcast is sponsored by those two things. And remember, Make Sense Academy is a private mastermind and psychological safe haven in a community full of the mindset, tools, and strategies that help you shift from just simply going through life to growing through life. The Make Sense Substack blog is a free publication that brings you a weekly dose of consciousness and perspective. Level up your subscription, as I said, and we'll thank you with our premium content. And that's just $8 a month, and gain access to all of the goodies that come along with it. So thank you, Make Sense Academy, which is kind of strange because it's mine, and Make Sense Substack, and all these advertisers that are coming down the pipe. So let's get this back up here. So let's talk about this. We're going to go over a little bit of an abstract and a summary of this, my own sense of this book that has completely changed the game for me in building my health coaching, business, which is, responsible for thousands and thousands of people getting healthy, thousands of people getting, making money, helping people get healthy, and all because of these communication technologies. And a lot of them I learned from this book. So the science of influence is not about manipulation. I wanted to open up with that. That's very important to understand, because when you get armed with these kind of tools, it's very easy to use them to your advantage. And there's nothing necessarily wrong to doing something to your advantage, but there's a difference between manipulating these powerful tools that I'm going to share with you for your advantage. It's more so about understanding human psychology and the intrinsic motivators that drive people's decisions. That's what this is about. This guy's a historian. Cialdini's groundbreaking book, Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion, has been a foundational text for marketers, sales professionals, and communicators since the first release. And that was the first one that came out, which just a freaking awesome book. Top 5. Now, with the updated edition that includes new insights and online applications, because we're gonna go over those as well, Cialdini expands on his 6 original principles of persuasion with a 7th. Ooh, I wonder what the 7th is going to be. Put it in the chat for those of you that are listening live if you know what the 7th one is. Don't Google it. Isn't that funny that we have all these tools to secretly get an answer and pretend that we answered it? So while offering modern strategies for leveraging these principles in a digital world, that's what the 7th principle is about, which didn't really exist when you wrote the book, which sold millions and millions of copies. So it's even better now. So this episode explores and makes sense of the core takeaways from this book, Influence. Delving into the psychological triggers that shape human behavior, we will also include the newly introduced concepts from the latest edition, as I said, and examine how understanding these principles can make you a more effective communicator. I love the idea of always working on and paying forward everything that I learn, how to become a master communicator. And ironically, you'll find that it's more about listening than speaking. Isn't that strange? How becoming a master communicator would instill this idea that it's about speaking, but it's more about listening, isn't it? A master communicator, seller, which is perfectly fine. You're all selling something, and or leader. So we'll also provide practical action steps at the end, as always, in new world scenarios where you can take your sales, your marketing, and your business, or simply want to improve some of your relationships and do that to the next level. So by becoming what Cialdini calls, and I love this is one of the things I set up to do every day, by becoming what he calls a detective of intrinsic motivation, you're going to learn how to recognize and ethically apply these persuasion principles to meet people where they are, which we all say we do, but do we? Is it a strategy to meet people where they are, or are you meeting them where they are because you want to understand them, seeking to understand, or are you seeking to be understood? And that'll help us build trust and help them feel like the timing is divinely aligned. You ever notice that when you not only want to purchase a product or a service, but you get this sense that the timing is like divine. It's divine intervention. You're not going to believe what happened to me today, honey, right? Is there a strategy behind that? Of course there is, but the authentic nature of the intention plays a big role in this. So just a quick note about the author. Cialdini is a globally recognized expert in psychology, specifically in the psychology of influence, persuasion, and ethical marketing. That's a big key, as a lot of people don't know that. Ethical marketing. He's very big on that. He's got a PhD in psychology from the University of North Carolina and a postdoctoral training at Columbia University. Smart guy alert. He has spent decades researching human behavior and decision making. Isn't that something important for us to know? Researching behavior, human behavior, but also decision making. His groundbreaking book that we're going to discuss today, Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion, has sold millions of copies worldwide and is considered the definitive guide on persuasion and influence, widely used by marketers all over the world, business leaders, sales professionals, and psychologists. It's actually sitting on my top 5 all-time favorite books list. And I'm putting together what I call a book trail, and you guys can have access to all those. If you read all the books that I've read, or at least my favorites, it's going to be a really interesting ride. So Cialdini's work has influenced Fortune 500 companies, political campaigns, and even FBI negotiation tactics. If you listen to all these guys, it's very hot commodity on podcasts and stuff. You got these FBI agents giving some of their communication and negotiation strategies. Actually, the concept of negotiation is very hot on YouTube and stuff. Well, they got a lot from the Cialdini. So he has been a professor of psychology and marketing at Arizona State University and has delivered keynote speeches all over the place. So his latest edition introduces this 7th principle, which we're going to go. So my quick summary, if I step back and I go, what do I think about this book? This is where you're going to get kind of my take on things. And I think that's what makes these special. Cialdini's book is based on decades of research into why people say yes. Not trying to get them to say yes, but first starting off by saying, why do people say yes? What prompts you to say yes? And what psychological forces are driving people's decision-making? There's things in decision-making that you're not really in control of. And if somebody knows how to interact with them, the outcome completely changes. So when you meet somebody that's a great salesperson, they know this stuff. But the question is whether they're using it against other people's will, or in support of it. So he introduces 7 principles that can be applied in sales, marketing, and leadership, and everyday interactions to enhance communication and persuasion. So here are the principles. So I'll go over the first 6, and then we'll go over the 7th, and I'll give you a little bit of a note. You want to read the book if you want to go deep into them. So principle 1 is called reciprocity. God, if anybody knows me, we talk about this all the time. And just as a reminder, where is it? Over here. Scan this code and you can get Cialdini's book. Okay, so I'll give you guys another second to do that before I remove it. So the first one, reciprocity, the law of reciprocity. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. Here it is. People feel compelled to return favors. So if you're asking for favors and you haven't given one, you're not playing with the law of reciprocity. So this one is huge, as we recognize that there are certain times in a conversation or a relationship, because of this law of reciprocity, whether it's a friend or family, or you've established some sort of value offer for the person and help them, there's times where it is appropriate to ask for something because of this. It actually is very fitting. People want you to ask them so they know how to help you sometimes, but also there's times when it's not. So this is an important one. Number 2 principle, it's called commitment and consistency. By the way, in the YouTube version of this that will go on there, as well as the podcast description, I'm going to also put a link so that you can listen to this awesome interview between Tony Robbins and Robert Cialdini, loaded into your iTunes, and it goes over all these principles. So commitment and consistency, number 2. Once people commit to an idea or course of action, they have a tendency of sticking with it. So what this means is it reminds us to refrain from getting in the way of what people like. This is what I think is interesting. If you know somebody is enjoying something, there's an element of what they're doing, even if they're not getting the results that they like. Don't get in the way of some sort of healthy habit, because once people do something that they like doing and then they enjoy doing and they perceive as working, they have a tendency of sticking with that. The idea would be to insert something that is going to accelerate or get them better results and have them start liking that, which they naturally will because there'll be results. So number 3, social proof. Man, this one is happening everywhere right now. And because of the advent of social media and the internet, it's very, very easy to facilitate. Social proof is this. People look to others for guidance on how to behave. We don't make our own minds up these days, do we? Right? What we do is, there's our Substack if you want to get on that. What we do is we kind of try to go with the flow, the herd mentality. So people look to others for guidance on how to behave, especially in uncertain situations. I don't know what to do. What's everybody else doing? I mean, we do this on a small level when we say, hey, what does everybody else want to eat? And what everybody says, or where do you want to go tonight? We say, I'm in, right? By demonstrating the social proof of your product and service, right? What everybody else tends to do. Well, this is how most of my clients start. Well, those that are getting the best results seem to be using this aspect of my service, or, how the majority of people are doing things. It tends to be a major, major factor in the decision-making of your consumer. Now, if your consumer doesn't see that there is a group of people doing anything with success, well, not only are you not taking, advantage of this social proof thing, but you're probably losing that client. Why would anybody want to do something that nobody else is doing? Well, I guess there is some value. Number 4, authority. This is the 4th principle. People are more likely to follow those who appear knowledgeable and credible. So establishing credibility and credentials and historical results, even more important, is crucial. So what's interesting about the fabric of business right now, and I don't know if you're taking note of this, there's a lot of people out there that have no credentials at all. There's actually kids out there making millions of dollars teaching adults how to do things. But nobody seems to care whether or not these people have actually done these things. What they do is they look at the social proof, right? The followers, the views. So that has a big impact on the social proof. But these people don't really need credentials. You know why? Because results always trump credentials. So things have changed in this principle of authority, right? I always say, because I work a lot with coaches and health and wellness coaches, I always tell people that, the plaques on your wall are not really of concern to people. People just want to know if what you do works. So if you want to establish authority, use a combination of social proof and results. Be a results-driven person. People don't care how smart you are. All they want to know is if they spend their time and money on what you do, if it's going to work. Number 5 is called liking, simply put. So we are more likely to say yes to people that we like or relate to. This is a very, very important strategy in communication. So this unveils the power of establishing in conversation commonality when you're speaking, right? Saying things like, "Oh, I can totally relate to you. I'm the same." Or something like, "Oh man, I am the same way. Wow." So if you have commonality in hobbies and likes, or even social status, or where you even live, or places that you go, or hobbies, or the way you exercise, or how you eat, or anything like that, it takes the conversation to a new level, where like attracts like, say it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. So if you're struggling to succeed at something, this is what liking kind of shares as well. And I share with you how my struggle was the same as yours. And I say, but here's how I figured it out. That's going to dramatically change your decision-making process. Take note not only of how you're doing this in conversations, but also take note of how it's being done to you. It's so much fun. I get pitched all the time, and I love having conversations with the pitcher about their pitch. And I say things like, "Oh, I'm so fascinated with your approach right there. You made it look like you're actually a friend of mine and that you like my content. The only problem is that I went and I saw that you haven't liked any of my content. So I think it's just an approach. I recommend," it's so much fun to do this. "I recommend that you go back and actually make it look like you like my content before you say it." And what's funny is sometimes they come out of the shadows and go, "Oh man, that's great advice. I'm going to start doing that." And I say, "There's more where that came from." And all of a sudden I'm selling them. So number 6, scarcity. This is a big one. This has been going on forever. Scarcity is a perception, right? Perceived scarcity increases the demand and desire. What this means is when somebody thinks that something's going to run out or there's a time limit on something, that's where these things like FOMO come in. Reminding people of the power of FOMO, fear of missing out, in case you didn't know what that was, and why companies create things like deadlines for deals and strategies for, like, saying supplies are limited and things like this. Look at, Black Friday, look at the deals that come at the end of the year. It's just all a strategy. And it gives a perception like there's only this time that you can get this deal. I mean, we all use that, but that's called scarcity. And what happens is when there's scarcity, it develops another principle of urgency, right? If somebody has the urgency to do something, meaning that it becomes urgent and it comes to the front of their mind as something they must do. Everybody wants things, but some people want, and need things. But when it becomes something you must have, it very often could have been influenced by scarcity. And all of a sudden urgency came out. So here's the 7th one, and then we'll go a little bit deeper into this. The new 7th principle that Cialdini talks about in his new edition, and I'll put that up there again because you definitely want this book. Scan that code and you can get Cialdini's book. His new principle is called unity. Now, remember, he wrote this new principle as a result of the new landscape that's happening out there. When he wrote the first book, there wasn't all of this social media and stuff. So very, very cool to get his insight on it. His genius is just as powerful as ever. We are more easily influenced by those whom we share common identity. So we're talking about unity here, right? So what that means is that if I identify with a group of people or a person, pictures can do this, the ways people speak. A lot of people identify with the way I think and my story. That's a very, very big thing. Remember, birds of a feather flock together. People want to belong and strengthen their identity. That's why we want to belong to a community. It's safe, but it also helps strengthen our identity that we belong somewhere by moving with the flock. People would much rather move with the flock. Now, I, for one, like to move alone, But in reality, I'm in a flock. I'm in a flock as well, right? What the flock? What the flock is that about? This is some good shift here, folks. So this obviously being a double-edged sword, right? Getting involved in the flock, you could get flocked. All right, I'm having too much fun there. A double-edged sword in society, but also a powerful form of influence nonetheless. And the reason why I say it's a double-edged sword is you could get so tethered to a flock and this idea that you identify with that flock and it feels safe that you'll form a cognitive bias to anything else. So we talk a lot about on this show this idea of becoming open and curious to looking at things from different vantage points. Remember, if you change the way you look at things, it's only then that the things that you look at change. So if you're not allowing yourself to take that right protect switch off and allow new things to come in and look at things from different vantage points, including the one that you're of the person you're talking from, that's that dark side of the moon. So Cialdini explains that understanding these principles allows us to detect when they are being used against us, but also utilize them as ways of enriching our conversations and our results. Remember, manipulation is something that you could perceive as happening, but the manipulator might not even know that they're doing it. You know, there's a big discussion about the concept of somebody that may be like a narcissist or somebody that's gaslighting or love bombing somebody. Big shout out to Dr. Nadine Macaluso, who is on our show. Dr. Nadine is the real ex-wife of the famous Jordan Belfort and the Wolf of Wall Street. She talks a lot about love bombing and narcissism. But the question is does that person know they're doing it? So if you feel like you're manipulating somebody, you probably are. But if you perceive somebody's manipulating you, they might be so used to it, they don't even know. Like I can see that in sales trainers, man. They believe that stuff. They'll teach you the science of how you get people to do things, even if they're not ready to do them, but not see that it's manipulation. There goes that AI thumb. So here are some new insights and applications from the updated edition. So it's not just Unity. There's some other extensions, and I wanted to give that to you. So the revised edition of Influence includes new applications for today's digital age, as I said, recognizing how the rise of online marketing, social media, and e-commerce has completely changed the fabric of the landscape. Okay, everything's different right now because there's stuff going on that we're not even aware of. So number one, the principle, as I said, of unity. That's his seventh principle. So Cialdini adds that seventh principle, unity, which speaks to the power of shared identity. So when people feel part of a group, whether based, on their group or family or community, values and things like that, religion, politics, God, is that happening right now? Or even shared experiences, right? There's groups formed of people that have the same disease or shared experiences, or divorce and single parents and widows and all that stuff. There's so many near-death experiences, plant medicine. What? Who's done that? So they're more likely to be influenced by others within that group. Okay, so that's unity. So this is why branding and community-driven marketing is so effective. Right? Come be part of the community. God, we have an amazing community at Make Sense Academy. And I'm not manipulating right now, but if somebody comes and experiences that community, not only are they going to learn all the stuff, the headspace stuff, the tools, the strategies, but they're going to look left and right and see that they're in an environment full of open and curious people that don't judge and things like that. So you see how I'm selling you on the feeling of the community, right? One that I'm very proud of. So this is why branding and community-driven marketing is so effective. Companies that create a sense of belonging, like here's a couple that Apple's loyal user base. Thank you for being part of Apple's loyal user base, or Harley Davidson's rider community. Any Harley riders out there? I know some of you. It fosters truth and loyalty and drives sales and engagement. So I'll give you an example that hits home to me. I'm a health coach, right? And I run a very big health coaching company, very, very large, thousands of coaches, thousands and thousands of clients. And it's called Optavia. Shout out to Optavia. So they created a campaign. Our corporate partners created a campaign recently that refers to a certain type of coach that is what's called an Optivist, right? And basically the way that's been branded is that It's an indication, if you're an optimist, that you're fully committed to the mission, which I am, and the culture. So it's different from just being a coach and being an optimist. So that's about identity and self-worth, right? I want to be in the room where it happens, and I want to be known for my commitment to the culture and the mission, right? So I want to be an optimist. So that's the way it works. Genius. I love it. Number 2, digital and social media influence. Here's the one that you got to be on the alert for, because it's happening without you knowing it. So Cialdini explores in his new version of the book how online persuasion differs from in-person persuasion. Now, a lot of us say, oh, I much prefer being in a room and feeling the person's energy. A lot of that has to do with your ability to authentically read what people are saying, right? So the power of reviews and testimonials are running rampant on social media, right? This being the social proof thing, but at scale, right? I don't have to introduce you to somebody that's gotten referrals. I can post about it every 5 minutes if I want. I can have videos about it and all that, and just hit it all the time, rewiring neuroplastically, rewiring your brain and your trust. So the importance of influencers and authority figures. So, I mean, you see that everywhere. Authority figures, influencers. There are people now that have reached rock star status that nobody's even met in person. In fact, there are people like, who's this guy, Mr. Beast? I mean, big credit to this guy. Unbelievable that this is just an ordinary guy that figured out how to use social media and become as wealthy or more than some of the biggest movie stars that you know from the internet and YouTube. Don't hate the player, hate the game. So the use of limited time offers and countdown timers, so easy now. I could put a timer on this right now that says, buy Cialdini's book, in the next 10 minutes at 50% off, which I'm not saying. You're just going to Amazon. And I could put that visual up there and create this anxiety in you that you have to go get it. So this embracing the concept of scarcity and that trigger for urgency. So businesses and individuals can apply these insights by creating more compelling offers, leveraging authority figures in their niche. We can hire people, we can have cameos, we can make it look like we're friends with people. Do you know that it would be so easy for me to take an interview of some famous person and just split screen it and have it be me asking the question and them answering it, but we've never even had that interview. That happens a lot. That happens a lot. And just think about the credibility, right? Probably get in trouble for that. So number 3, how the internet has enhanced persuasion. Okay, be on the lookout. Instant reciprocity, free trials. If I give you something for free, you owe me. It's an imbalance of our relationship. Lead magnets. And then how about affiliate marketing, right? If I say, hey, if you tell your friends about this, you'll make some money, right? Such a great relationship. I love affiliate marketing. So the second one, personalized commitments, AI-driven personalization, right? Meaning the experience is unique and personalized to you, ensures people see content that aligns with what they're already expressed interest in, what they've already expressed interest in. So the new world of AI and this whole algorithm idea demonstrates personalization at light speed. I mean, has anyone here ever had a conversation with your husband or your wife or your partner or your children and then seen an advertisement about that? I mean, there's no way that we're not being watched by these cameras. Oh, that just scared some of you, didn't it? So the last one, social proof at scale. Right? We talked about social proof, one of those principles, the ability to showcase millions of satisfied customers in all shapes and sizes and genders. Very, very easy to do with the internet. So if you're in sales or marketing, you must think about your online presence now, right? And whether or not it builds trust and influence. If you have an online presence, but it's not converting into what it is that you want it to convert, there's something about it that's not promoting your results driven. It's not influencing people to do anything. And a big part of that is people maybe just don't trust you because you're not giving as much as you're asking. And there's reciprocity. It's all working. Social proof, testimonials, case studies, authority, expert positioning, all of that stuff, and reciprocity, the free value, but it's not for free. It's like the mafia. Now I'm going to ask you for a favor, right? Should all be strategically incorporated. So using influence to improve sales and communication, almost there. Cialdini's principles are invaluable in sales because they help guide conversations. And they do so in a way that makes decision-making the decision-making process feel natural for the client. You'll notice that if you're talking to a really good salesperson, they will start to paint a picture for you. And they'll start to incorporate things like, well, what would your wife say if you came home with this new car, right? And she got to drive it and all of that stuff, right? It just makes people feel like rational. If you watch The Wolf of Wall Street, that's how he got famous. He was very good at making people trust him and feel like it was a logical thing to buy a stock. So understanding the candidate's current reality is a big part of this. One of the biggest mistakes that we make in sales and communication is assuming what a client needs. Big, big mistake, right? Assuming that we know what a client needs. Instead of pushing a sale, ask the client, ask the person, or even someone you're trying to create a relationship with, ask them questions to uncover what they actually truly value. Isn't that enough? Why don't we start with that? Recognize the fears that they have, their desires or aspirations that they have, and identify and uncover how your product and service can address those rather than the ones that you assume they have. Biggest mistake you could ever do is judge a book by its cover, right? That's called speed networking. Doesn't work. Allow the conversation to unfold organically, right? Everybody's in a rush to make the sale, and do so in a way that makes people feel ready, as if the timing, as I said before, is divinely aligned. So how to ethically apply these things? Use reciprocity. Give. Make more deposits than asking for withdrawals. The second one, create that commitment and consistency. Get small, low-risk commitments first. You know, that's the whole nature of these funnels and relationship nurturing and nurturing emails. Give people simple, easy, often free things to do, and develop trust, develop a relationship with people, and then leverage social proof. Share testimonials, reviews, and success stories. Make sure that you check your intentions all the time. Very important. Number 4, position yourself as an authority. And as I said before, the best type of authority would be a results driven, right? Look at the results that I've created with my program. That's all people really care about, not the plaques on your wall. I know a lot of really smart people that haven't helped anybody. I talk to them every day. Make people like you. Now, that's a tough one. How do you make somebody like you? Become likable. Think of yourself as an irresistible magnet that attracts people to you. What would it be about you that would be irresistible? Well, you'd build rapport and find common ground with people, right? That commonality thing. But also, you wouldn't in any way, shape, or form indicate that you're only out there for you, right? Practice being interested more than interesting. Practice caring before you share. So introduce scarcity, if applicable, highlight urgency and limited availability, which is very often real, right? Because prices change. And then number 7, that new principle, foster unity. Make people feel part of something bigger than themselves. You know, when people come into the Make Sense Academy, I could very easily misunderstand that the greatest value would be me and the tools and the strategies that I'm going to teach people, the interface response system and all of that stuff. It's really the community. It's letting people shoot things off of other people, letting people look left and right and saying, hey, I'm not alone. I can do this. Very, very important. So these principles, in closing, all work together to help us create trust-based relationships where the client feels in control. The client feels in control of their decision-making rather than feeling that they're being sold. Hey, that's today in a nutshell. I hope that you get this book, right? So where is it? I point at it. There it is. Get this book. This is one of my all-time top 5 most impactful books that I've ever read. Get the new edition so you can get the 7th principle. I will share the audio file of the great Tony Robbins sharing or having an interview with Cialdini. And I love and appreciate you all. Join the Substack. Let's make sure we get that up there. Join the Substack, listen, follow the podcast. And if anybody wants any information on the Make Sense Academy, as always, you can just text me, smoke signal me, or message me the words "make sense," and I will send you a personal invite with a risk-free trial. So love and appreciate you all. I hope that you got something from this. And remember, if you learned something today, it's only when you give it away that it will stay. So have an amazing day, everybody. Thanks so much.